Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me again here. It's always nice to come back to Warsaw. I still feel home after all those years. And it's nice to be in, yeah, I know, other ways. 2 years ago, I got this job to shut out the light here. So you might say I'm giving the enlightening talk. And when you hear year after year after year after year in the same spot, I figured I have to be different each time. So last year, I made the announcement that I wouldn't speak Polish as I did the year before, which might have made some people sad. So this year, my announcement is I'm not gonna do live coding again, which should make everybody happy, actually. You're laughing about me? What does it mean? Was the joke that good? Or was the live coding that bad? I'm not sure if I want to know the answer. So this year, my talk is titled nuqjatlh. And you might wonder, what does it mean? Well, it means this. And some of you might still wonder, what does it mean? Well, it means this. You spot the difference between Polish and English. Let's go back and forth, up. In Polish, there's this K-word, not keyword, K-word. And it's basically a fill word. You can put it into any sentence at any place. And you cannot translate it, since no other fucking culture would fucking do this. Except Klingons, who swear a lot. Nuqjatlh. Speaking of Klingons. Tar, par, tar, be. To be or not to be. The Klingon Hamlet coming to Warsaw. On their worldwide tour, the Kronos Ensemble, Art is a Weapon, will guest on 9th of May 2315, which is tomorrow in 300 years, at Warsaw's nuqjatlh to perform William Shakespeare's Hamlet, an original Klingon language. Actually, the Klingons wanted to play in the National Theatre, but the authorities thought it would be too big a stage for him, so they sent him to the suburbs. And the Klingons actually were pleased by the name, by the sound of the name of that venue, nuqjatlh. It's located at Góreczka 65, which actually is not in the suburbs. It's still pretty much in the center. Begin 22 o'clock. I've been here 2 years ago when Stefan Golasch taught the native English speaker the 24-hour system. He will succeed in 300 years. The ticket's €42. Oh, look, in 300 years, Poles will have adopted the European currency. And there's some further information on some webpage. Okay. So, can I have a microphone? Give me this one. Yeah, I want to use it later. So, thank you. So, I have a question to you. Looking at you, front row. What does semantic markup to you mean? No idea? Come on, second row.
Okay. So basically it means that you need to use elements that mean something, that convey meaning themselves.
Okay, what do they mean?
Well, okay, so for navigation you would use nav, for
Okay.
something else you would use something else, for a site, for some complementary information you would use a site, and things like that. So basically, if you read the source, you can understand that. You can understand exactly what it conveys some additional meaning, even just by looking at it.
Okay, thank you. Whoops. It's dangerous up here. Okay, so you were thinking about this. This is kind of an article, maybe, and there we have a header, which contains a heading and some additional text, one more paragraph, another piece of text, a footer with a link in it, and finally an image. So, the HTML might look like this, right? Everybody agrees? Good? Now. Look at this. Does it work? Come on, come on. There it says content is in English. And tarpe is not English. So what you need to do is to mark up the pieces of text that are not English accordingly. Okay, so why? Why do we do this? Because, for instance, for styling, you must not put all, when Klingon is written, you must not put all letters into uppercase, nor into lowercase, as I was already telling the folks in Bologna last year. So be sure to have this rule in your style sheet. The same goes for German, by the way. It's, I can uppercase, okay. Lowercase, no. Nouns are spelled with capital letter in German. So you'd better not do this. So that's why we have to mark up this as being Klingon. Okay? And now we have, you might not translate, when an automated translator looks at this piece of text, you don't want to have tarpe translated into that target language. You want to keep that, so you set a translate attribute to no. And then look at this, Grujecka. What would a screen reader read if it assumes it is English? Grujecka? So be sure to mark up it as Polish. And also, nuqjatlh is Polish. So the markup looks much better now. Oh, one thing we can do, here's a date. So we can mark up it with a time element. And the time has to be in this ISO format, not 9th of May. It has to be machine readable in this format, and if it's not in the element content, you have to use the datetime attribute. Okay, then look here, we have here the time, right? So we might put it there as well. And we might use also the time zone. It's not some random time zone, but a specific time zone. So will we do have daylight summertime in 300 years? Well, some things never change. Okay, but what I'm thinking about is this. Semantically, this is an event which has a name. And this might be a performer, a date, a location. This is a work being performed by this author, or by this name. Here's the address, this time, the price, a URL to the web page, and an image. So this is what semantic markup means to me. So we have two things of semantic markup. So every talk has to use a Venn diagram, huh? So that's going to be it. So the question is how to put this semantic markup into HTML. Okay, the information looks like this. We have an event with a name, a performer, a date time, location, with a name, an address, city, street, and so on. So, kind of like the DOM tree, we have a tree here as well. And one method to put it into HTML is microformats, which is done just using attributes, with class attributes, with specific names. So we say that the whole thing is an event. Hamlet coming to Warsaw is the summary to that event. And here we have the time, rather here in machine readable format. So we say this is a start time. And down here we have the location. So we add the class location here. And this was the original microformats format, and this is microformats 2, where the class names have changed with prefixes. But you can still not mark up everything. We could not mark up the price of the tickets and such things. So here you see the location. Okay, let's go back to our tree here. And these are the values. And you see here's some blank points. So we have some blank nodes. We just give them. We changed here also the value. Actually, give it an URL and set it as of type event. And the blank nodes we give some names, type location, and the type address, and the type work. Okay, you're still with me? Good. And now enter RDF, which is a rich description framework. And we take all these relations and make them machine readable. And this is done with just like sentences with subject and predicate and object. Simple as that. And all those things are URIs. So we have our subject, this is at the top. A predicate might be this. We just use some namespace and some name for that property, for that predicate. And an object might be, for instance, a string, or also a URI. We'll see in a minute. So this is one of that thing. So this is this first arrow. No, this one. Here's the second one. The same subject, predicate is type, the object is also an URI, event. So this tells us, okay, this thing has a name, Klingon Hamlet, and is of the type event. The next one is the same subject, predicate is location, and what was it? Endpoint, our blank node. Okay, next one. And now we can make a statement about our blank node. It is of the type location and has a name, nuqjatlh, and has an address, which is another blank node, and so on, and so on, and so on. So this RDF just describes the framework, but not the syntax. There are many possible syntaxes out there. One was a the graph. The other one was the notation I just showed with the triples. This is XML, another possible notation, or JSON LD. And all this makes these data machine readable. Okay? The question is it also understandable? And the answer is probably not. Enter schema.org. Because, why not? No machine knows what nuqjatlh example NS name means. So the machines have to speak the same language. They have to use the same words for these things. They have to use the same vocabulary. And schema.org is one of those vocabularies which many parties agree on, so it's kind of standard. So we just change this predicate to schema.org name, and a machine would understand this. Here, schema.org type, and the type is schema.org event. Schema.org location. Schema.org type, we already knew this. It's getting boring, huh? Ah, wait, watch out, watch out. It's not schema.org location, but schema.org place. So it's pretty good documented. Do I have to tell you the URL of the documentation? That's smart enough to figure it out. Huh? Okay, here is name and address. Fine. But we didn't originally have some machine-readable code. We wanted to have it on our web page, right? So how can we get this information into HTML? And now enter RDFa, which is RDF and attributes. So we name it with a resource attribute. Say this is the type of the thing is an event, and this is the title or the name. So we'd say property name. And we go down. Here we have the performer. So let's mark it up. So there was no element, so we have to create an HTML element. So we use a span here and say this is a performer. But this is not how schema.org works. The value of the performer property must not be a string, but a thing of the type organization, let's say. So we say here this is a thing of the type organization which has a name. And in this way, we can nest this information and make it a tree. This still goes to there. We saw that all have the schema.org in the URL at the beginning, so we can make it shorter. We say here, we use the vocabulary schema.org, and then we just, instead of schema.org/event, we just use event here. And here, just name. Performer, well, and instead of organization, we have organization, and so on. Next thing was the date, so rather this one, and it's the start date. And if we have such attribute here, then the machine would not take the element content, but the value of that attribute. Down, what else do we have? The nuqjatlh, which is our location. And location can also not be a string, but a thing of the type place, which has a name. Next. Here we have the work being performed. It's getting slow. So I have to go closer. It works now. I should stay here on this side. So this is the work performed. Should be of the type creative work. Has an author and a name. And we can even mark up the language. This is in Klingon language, but the value of the in-language property must not be a string, but a language tag. So this is going to be this. We can put, if we don't want to use the content of the element, we can use a content attribute and have here's the value for this property. And then we have Grujetska 65, which is the address. Oh, wait a minute, address. We have the address belongs to the place, right? But not down there. What to do? And there was also Warsaw in this place, so this is also belongs to the address. So let's mark it up this first. It must be of the type postal address, and the locality is Warsaw. And now we can add Poland. By the way, when I was using the map on my mobile phone, and I typed in Warsaw, it wouldn't find it because my default is Germany, and it was looking for Warsaw in Germany. So we might put the Poland as PL, as a language tag into this. And wow, a meta element in the document body. Am I kidding? No, you can do this in HTML5. Seriously, when it has a property attribute. And what we can do is we give this another resource attribute, use a blank node as a value, and use the same here. So this means that this information belongs together. And we can go back here and say this is the address, actually. Then we have 20 o'clock. But we already had this in the datetime attribute. You remember? Good. So there it was. So we don't have to do this again. Ticket 42 euro. You might think we might do it this way. No, price is not a property of an event. But schema.org offers the property offers of the type offer. And there we can say, okay, our offer is for the price of 42 euro, you get in. Then we can say additional meta information tickets are available. And we use a standard URI as a value here. And you might think, a link element in the document body? Are you kidding? No, I'm not. It's possible in HTML5. Last but not least, we have some link here and our image. Wow. Done. Wait a minute. Let's go back. This is RDFa. There's another way to do it. And that's microdata. RDFa is, well, we can do, it's pretty rich. You can do pretty much in RDFa, and it might get hard to parse for a machine. And Hixie didn't like it. that it's too hard to parse. So he invented over a weekend a thing called microdata, which it looks a little like this same thing, basically, right? Only item prop is property, type of is item type, and you need an item scope attribute as well when you have an item type. I don't know why it is redundancy. I don't know what it's for. Anyway, later came on RDFa Lite, which is a subset of RDFa, and that subset is easy to parse as well. So there's no need to use microdata anymore. And there shouldn't be two standards. There should be just one, and hopefully one of those dies. And I hope it's microdata that dies. So another slide from my talk in Bologna, where I played the Ferengi and set up a coffee grinder shop. And you see that I used this schema.org information there and showed once you have these things, you can even use them for styling. You don't need no classes, like Leonie already said. So you have pretty clean markup, right? No classes anymore. Heaven. This typeface actually is from hell. Typefaces. Look at this. What are you laughing at? The important part of the picture is this one. It's League Gothic. It has become very popular, very trendy. Frontrends use it. So Frontrends goes by the name Font Trends. Anyway, I wanted to show you quickly. Here's our web page. And why are we doing this anyway? What is it? Can it be used for? So it can be used not just for styling. Obviously, look at this. Here's some plugin. It's operator. It works with microdata actually, with the old one still. It's still a pretty old one. And if I click here, I see that there is some event, yeah, and I can export this. It opens up the calendar. I click OK. It goes, and we have in 2315 our event. Amazing, eh? Just from the web page. Another thing I wanted to show you, there's a tool, RDFa Play. I put just have here the markup of our website, and here it shows beautifully the graph, which looks pretty much the same as it did before, right? So I was looking very much into the future now. So let me take the chance to look back in time. Today marks the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. And it's time to remember that the Soviet and the American and the British and the French were allies once. Soon after that, the Cold War started, and when Star Trek, the original series, was filmed in the late 60s, it was obviously whom the Klingons were meant to represent, right? So I hope, well, that the relationships between humans and Klingons have changed in the next generation, and hopefully the Klingons would come to us one day, and we treat them as friends. And they come to us to perform Hamlet. If you want to see more of this, come tomorrow in 300 years. See you then. Kapla!
So I'd like to answer the question as well, because I work on schema.org. And the answer is, you can either use JSON LD or RDFa. The benefit of RDFa is that it's right in the middle of your markup. And so there are people who will use that. The benefit of JSON LD is, if you've got a fairly mechanical process, if you're generating stuff out of some back end and you've got code doing it all, it's very easy to generate and to store. It's linked separately. Essentially, we have recognized that both of these are reasonable things. When Schema started, it was use microdata. Essentially, we have recognized that this was a dumb idea and we're sorry. And actually, the fundamental reason is microdata is quite limited. Where it works, you'll be able to use it for a long time still, but it breaks a couple of things. One is doing that ordering thing that Gunnar showed, where you have the information in two places. You can do that in microdata if you're very, very clever. And you can't mix vocabularies. With JSON LD or with schema.org, if you're a library and you have some of your data in very high quality professional vocabularies and some of your data in schema.org's vocabulary, which is an organically evolving collection in the same way as a compost heap is, then being able to use the two kinds of data together is an advantage. So those are the two reasons for moving. And both JSON LD and RDFa look like they will stick around for some time as what we support in schema.org.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I never saw the translate attribute before. Is it an HTML5 attribute?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. Thanks.
I'll send some tweets to the content of the talk out right after the talk. And there's a link to an article about this, which is available in German language as well, because I have translated it. Any more questions? As you saw, the I element I had used to mark up this tar, par, tar, be. You might think, do I want it to have an italics? No, I don't want to have an italics. The I element doesn't have to do anything with styling anymore. Well, it has some default styles, yeah, but you can, of course, style it with CSS like you want in it. And it has a semantic meaning to be a phrase in a different tone, in a different language, anything. But okay. Any more questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, before you go home, okay, you might take the Klingon away from the screen to see if it works. Thank you. You can take place at a castle or at a factory. That was an insider joke. You can make the outside the place where everybody wants to be. That was an outsider joke. You can serve beer in the morning as a hangover medicine. Oh, but front trends save the last talk for me. You can have one code poet who has found his muse here. You can have one volunteer who has been overused. You can have one organizer who's given me a ride, driving me through town. making it a sightseeing tour. Warsaw by night just for me. Oh, front trends, say the last talk for me. You can have a 3D goddess morphing shapes through space and time. You can have a CSS goddess making every corner like a rounded corner. Wow, wow. Whoops, that's another song. Sorry, Bruce. I gotta stick to mine. But you can't have an SVG goddess, which is really sad. Sarah Sraden was supposed to be here, but she was denied her visa first. For some stupid reasons that no thinking person can understand. However, Mark Thiele from Beyond Tellerrand finally, with huge effort, got it to get her visa for Germany. So I'm looking forward to meet her at Beyond Tellerrand next days. And front trends, save the next year's talk for her. You can have a nanny taking care of kids. If their toys get lost, you'll have someone with a quick fix. You can have quadrocopters flying over me. Front trends, save the last talk for me. You can have a blind opening our eyes, teaching us to see. You can have my alter ego speaking po polsku. Sam ciekaw jak to brzmi. And you can have Mr. Lesser-Schmidt bullshmitting till we lose our pee. But front trends save the last talk for me. Now the tricky part of the song. Shift in the key. I have to figure out how to do it. Wait a minute. You can have your attendees having a party all night. Let me hear you. You can have some former backstage guy crossing the divide. You can have another long-haired guy saying thank you as jQuery. Oh, but front trends save the last talk for me. Yeah, front trends save the last talk for me. You sing it. A little bit louder. Just a little bit louder. Yeah, one more time now. For me. Thank you.